episode of the Insider's Guides. I cannot wait to introduce you to a legend in aviation on this episode of the podcast. And no, I am not exaggerating, because Mark Rubin has recently been given the FAA Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award. Mark, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I don't know if I consider myself a legend. And the Wright Brothers Award was fun because I got to hear what my friends and colleagues actually thought of me, and they were very, very nice. It's 53 years in aviation. It's a bit of an endurance award, I think, also.
Well, you must have started when you were 2, because you look absolutely great.
I was fortunate. I started when I was 15.
That's 15. About as early as you can start, right?
Yeah, for what I did, it was interesting. I joined a aviation explorer unit in Evanston, Illinois, where I lived at the time, and the person who ran that was a ground school instructor at Illinois Aircraft Midway Airport. And I went out on an introductory flight in an Alon aircrew back in '66, and it just took off from there. You know, I just fell in love with it, and I've been very blessed, very fortunate.
Well, you've flown all sorts of different aircraft, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But right now, I would love to talk about the Phenom 100 that you fly for Jetsuite. What can you tell me about the performance of this aircraft?
Well, first, it's a 4-passenger, what you might consider a very light jet. It's perfect for the Jetsuite operation in the Western United States. Year-round, you can guarantee 4 passengers, an hour and a half to 2 hours of range. Performance-wise, if you go up to Aspen or Sun Valley, the airplane will operate in and out of there, but you have to depart in the mornings when the temperatures are cool. It does not do very well in icing conditions because it has wing boots on the airplane, which increases the speed of the jet and reduces the climb performance. So generally, Jetsuite operates it on average airports 4,000 feet and below, with about 800 nautical mile range. And at times, because of the limitations in the summer, you might find yourself at a fuel stop just to complete a normal trip. The best example I can give was a customer we had, 4 very nice ladies who were going from Tucson to San Jose. It was the middle of summer, and we actually had to make a fuel stop at Bakersfield. But that's minimized. I mean, most of the time you can get the fuel stop done in 30 or 40 minutes, so it's not too much of a problem. It's a very comfortable airplane for the passengers. It's got great ramp presence. It looks good. It's got a full air store door on it. It looks fast on the ground, although in the air it's not so much. It's only at about a Mach 0.70, 275 knot max airspeed, and generally it cruises at 0.62 Mach, which generally I like to put airplanes in miles per minute. So nautical miles, 6 miles per minute. That's the airplane. 6 miles per minute, basically 3 hours, pretty much maximum in the air. And doing the math, it gets out to about 800 miles.
Fantastic. What mission do you, I think you touched on this a little bit, but what mission do you think is ideal for this aircraft?
For single pilot, private owner, it's an ideal airplane in the sense that it's not hard to fly, although at the higher speeds, one has to be proficient in it. I would recommend anybody going into any of the Embraer Phenoms to get professional training through their providers, through CAE or Embraer, and I guess they're in Amsterdam and also Brazil. But at Jetsuite, we go, captains go twice a year, first officers once a year to CAE. I did my original type rating there, and it really prepares you to fly the jet. The most challenging thing for me, I came off of airline jets over 30 years with Honeywell systems, and the Embraer Phenoms have Garmin 1000, and the one we're flying, the newer, later models, the EVs, have 3000. It's a very capable flight management system unit, but the way it operates with push buttons, knobs, and switches, I suffered for about a year with Garmin dyslexia. I grabbed the wrong thing or pushed the wrong button and had to start over. So it takes a little while to get used to. But it's an airplane, and it's a marvelous airplane, I think, for anybody who wants to fly 1 to 4 people up to 3 hours in range. And it goes up to 41,000 feet. It has a cruise speed which is adequate. In the terminal environment, if you want to mix in with the airline traffic, you can do 230, 250 knots, maybe to about 10 to 15,000 feet. Then you have to get back to your normal climb profile, which is generally 200 knots, a Mach 0.55. But I just call it a good 6 mile a minute airplane. And it's very reliable. Very reliable.
That's a fun way to think about it in a per mile or a miles per minute.
Well, it's easy. It's easier for flight planning and diversion. We use flightplan.com, and their numbers on the Phenom series are excellent. They're very accurate. But operationally, when you think, okay, 6 miles a minute, 15 pounds a minute, then if I have to do a divert, I can do it very quickly. The math in my head would go, yeah, we're okay. So I've always done this with airplanes, is boil it down to how many miles a minute I'm flying and what's the fuel burn per minute, and I can make quick calculations on the fly. Literally.
That's a great pro tip. I love that. Tell me a little bit about the pilot workload. I know that you fly in a 2-pilot operation, but you've probably flown in the airplane moving it somewhere with 1 pilot. Tell me what it's like flying in a 1-pilot versus 2-pilot environment in the Phenom 100.
To be all truth and honesty, I've only flown it with 2 pilots with Jetsuite. I have not flown it as a single pilot, but even after being in the airplane for 2 years, I think a single pilot operation would be challenging. The FAA talks about single pilot resource management, and it's knowing when to do the next right thing in the jet. The best thing about the Phenom, or any airplane in that matter, is that you control the thrust lever, so you control how fast you're going. And if you get a little bit overloaded single pilot, you can just slow it down, take your time. But once you're comfortable with it, you can walk up to the airplane, have it pre-flighted, ready to go in less than 30 minutes. Checklists are very straightforward and easy to accomplish. It's just more of a workload when you're doing it by yourself. You're more reliant. You have to be reliant on the autopilot. But even in a 2-pilot operation, in terminal environments in the SoCal area, or going into any major airport, like the other day we went into San Francisco, it gets pretty busy. 2 pilots are fully engaged. So it's something that I think single pilot is very doable, but you just have to be very good in your planning and be willing to take your time and actually let ATC know you're a single pilot so you don't get overloaded.
Well, you've come out of an airline environment where the cockpit is obviously larger. Tell me about how comfortable it is for the crew in the front of the Phenom.
Okay, I'm 6'2", and it's all on my legs. So the rudder pedals have adjustment, and I have them adjusted all the way forward and the seat all the way back, and my knees are right at the instrument panel. The seat height adjustment's enough to where you can get the proper seat height, so you have a good view out the cockpit windows, but it's tight. And the other thing about flying, whether it's single pilot or 2-pilot with Jetsuite, especially with customers, best way I can put it is dehydration management. You don't want to have to do the walk of shame to the laboratory in the back of the airplane. And the Phenom 100 has a curtain in the back in the laboratory, which provides some privacy, although it's right there next to the seats. And the Phenom 300, which we'll talk about later, has doors that give you much more privacy. But it was a challenge for me. I mean, I used to, in an airline environment, if I had a physical need, I can get a flight attendant to come up to the cockpit and go back and take care of it. I used to drink all the water I ever wanted to stay hydrated during flying. But now I have to repair it. It could go possibly 3.5, 4 hours without having to get out of the seat. And that's, I got to tell you, it's the biggest challenge I have, not flying the airplane. It's managing expectations and what I can do, because I do not want to do that walk of shame past the passengers.
That's great feedback and some that I have not heard before. Tell me a little bit about the passenger comfort in the back of the airplane, leg room and
Legroom is good. It's in the Phenom 100 is club seating, so two forward, two facing aft. If you think of a high-end SUV type seat with armrests that are fully adjustable and reclined, there's a connection for a passenger headset that you can go into the XM radio system, so they can have music available. The airplane works best if you're using Bose headsets or some other noise canceling headset for the passengers, because the cabin noise, while it's acceptable, is so much nicer when you can have that acoustic muffling from the headset. The two tray tables, one on each side of the cabin, so you can be pulled out and the passengers can use it for their own personal needs, whether they're conducting business or having something to eat. The lavatory is an airline style lab, so once you get behind the curtain, it's just like you're in any other airplane, although the area to maneuver is a little bit tough. We have a refreshment center, which we have thermoses for hot water and coffee, plus a full selection of alcoholic and soft drink beverages. But it is a relatively tight environment. I would say if you were to take the cabin of a Cadillac Escalade and two seats facing each other, that's about the space that you have. Very comfortable once you're in the airplane, sitting down and flying. The cabin height itself is probably as good as anything in the class. I have to stoop over at my height, but somebody who is under 6 feet will not have an issue moving around in the airplane. So I think
just stoop over a little bit, but
yeah,
not probably as much as you do.
My daughter took a video of me actually getting into the pilot's seat, where I literally have to put one leg in, twist, turn, sit down, pull the other leg in, and it's kind of entertaining to watch. But definitely, it's like putting on a tight glove for the pilots, but once you're there, it's comfortable.
Well, I hope she did that video and then gave you a gift certificate for yoga lessons. That would have been helpful.
Well, it keeps you flexible, I'll say that. That's for sure.
That's great. Just as an aside, there is an option on the Phenom 100 for a rigid lav door. I know that none of Jetsuites are configured like that, but that is an option that we do see sometimes in that aircraft. Moving on to luggage, can you tell me a little bit about the capacity of the aircraft for carrying bags?
Best thing about the jet, 353-pound capacity. The compartment is tall enough and long enough to take golf bags, skis, tall suitcases. I have volumed out before I've really reached the weight limit in most cases, but it holds everything that 4 people might think of bringing. I've never had to worry about stowing bags in that airplane. It's an excellent luggage compartment, easily accessible from the left side of the airplane below the engine.
And is there also nose baggage capacity or not?
There is. It's limited up to about 66 pounds, but we usually mainly use it for aircraft supplies. You could put a small, soft-sided piece of luggage in there or a backpack, but it's really not large enough, I think, for general use. Generally, the aft luggage compartment, and then there's enough room in the seat area to where someone could have their own personal briefcase or a backpack and access to their own personal devices. We also have Wi-Fi in the airplane, and the Wi-Fi makes it very enjoyable and also productive for our customers.
Right, we're seeing that in more and more aircraft, and we're actually seeing more and more demand for Wi-Fi as people are purchasing aircraft as well. Mark, talk to me about the reliability of the Phenom 100, and if you've experienced any AOGs, what your level of comfort is with that.
Very comfortable airplane as far as reliability. It's one of the most reliable jets I've flown. Any problem with Phenom generally can be resolved with an electrical reset if something is not working properly. In fact, we kind of joke that the term Embraer means every mechanical breakdown requires an electrical reset. So it generally works. Like there are times where the engines, for whatever reason, it didn't boot up properly. It happens very infrequently. I think maybe over the last 2 years, about 5 times. But where you'll go to start the engine and the engine won't turn. But generally, you just power the airplane down, disconnect the batteries, reconnect them, and everything's fine. The biggest challenge Jetsuite's had with the Phenom 100, they've had the airplane now over 10 years. Airframe hours are well above 7,000 hours. And I never am concerned that I'm going to have a problem with the mission with that jet. I've never had a delay that we've canceled a flight or delayed a passenger. But we did have some number 4 bearing seal issues with the Pratt & Whitney engine, and that's all been resolved, but it was causing some excessive oil consumption. And overall, that was handled through a service bulletin, and we modified all the airplanes with the assistance of Pratt & Whitney. But literally, every morning I go out to the airport, pre-flight the airplane, load the passengers, start up and go. It does much better with a ground power unit because it supports the batteries well. If you only do battery starts on the airplane, you will shorten the life of the batteries and you'll have more maintenance for that. But it's not something where you're going to have an unexpected failure. I did have one unusual failure in the Phenom. We did have an engine failure one day. We're flying into Los Angeles, and the tower shaft that connects the into compressor to the gearbox broke, and the engine just auto shut down, which is very nice with a full authority digital electronic engine control at the deck, is that it sensed the problem, shut the engine down before we even knew we had a problem. And it's very safe in that respect. It also makes the airplane very easy to operate. Even though it's manual throttles versus auto throttles, you have a defined detent for takeoff, go around setting, climb setting for cruise, and then you can adjust it from there. So the airplane electronics manage the engines perfectly. So
it sounds like a great airplane, and that the reliability is amazing. The maintenance is not a big deal. Every aircraft has service bulletins of things that they've found that fail in the aircraft. I think Phenom is one of the ones with fewer than others. And so I think that adds to the reliability of the aircraft. Mark, in summary, what's the best thing about the Phenom 100 and the worst thing?
The best thing about it is the mission it can accomplish within an 800 nautical mile range. It's a very flexible airplane. It's comfortable for the passengers. In that distance, the speed differential between a Phenom and a larger jet really isn't that important. We're talking maybe 5 or 6, 7 minutes. That's the best thing. The most challenging thing about the Phenom is for the pilot is staying within its performance envelope. We use a minimum 5,000 foot runway with it, although it can do much better. I believe below, very close to 3,500 to 4,000 feet balanced fueling. But because it doesn't have thrust reversers and it does not have ground spoilers, at least unless you're in the EV model, which has a spoiler capability, it's very speed sensitive. You have to be over the threshold on reference. And if you're anywhere from a knot or more over reference, you're going to increase your landing distance, which, because the speed creates extra to the wings, more less weight on the wheels, and even on a dry runway, increase your landing distance. But on a contaminated runway, something that's wet or slippery, the Phenom 100 can use up to 7,000-8,000 feet of runway to stop. It just depends on the situation. So pilots have to fly very precisely, but it's very easy to do. If I want to touch down at the 1,000-foot point, I can do that consistently 95% of the time. It's a very easy airplane to be accurate with. But you have to be within the envelope and not fly it outside its anti-icing capabilities or altitude capabilities. We use APG software for performance, and that keeps us safe, with always an option for the engine out for the single engine performance. So that's the most challenging thing, is performance.
Well, thank you so much. This has been such valuable information about the Phenom 100.